On their way to Area 51, two comic book fans encounter an alien. The two clueless nerds must think of a method to swiftly get the extraterrestrial back to his spaceship because government agents are chasing them. Stick around to the end to see how their story unfolds. Hello and welcome to Comedy Recap. Today we will give you a recap of the film Paul. Spoilers ahead, obviously. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. The movie starts off where a golden retriever is seen to be running towards a yellowish light that is glowing from the sky. There is a little girl named Tara, also with him, who wasn't aware of the situation. She opened the door for the retriever to run off, and she starts to hear her dog barking at something. She comes out of the house calling out her dog's name, Paul, with a confused, fearing tone, only to realize a spaceship landing directly on her dog and killing it. In the next scene, we can see two nerdy best friends, Graham and Clive, go to a Comic-Con to enjoy themselves. Then later, we see Graham and Clive at a motel waiting for their pizza. The delivery guy comes and asks a friendly question about what the two were planning. The best friends then reply and explain to the delivery man about their road trip that finally leads up to Area 51. The next morning, we can see the pair rent a vehicle for their trip and then start their journey. Later, both of them are seen sitting up at a pub discussing comic books with a middle-aged lady server. Two more guys are then seen entering the pub and having a laugh at the nerdy boys for ordering a fun-looking drink, to which Graham and Clive leave soon after. They both sit in the vehicle and accidentally smash the truck belonging to the guys inside the pub. They panicked and fled right away. Later, they are seen to be parked in a deserted area, taking pictures in the bright sunlight, where they see a car coming from afar. Thinking that it might be the guys from the pub coming after them for revenge, they start to flee again. The car starts to follow the two, to which both of them panicked. The car later overtook them and soon right after crashed and blew up. The guys got out and tried to help any survivors, but found an alien walking right out of the shadows talking to them. Clive pissed his pants and fainted, while Graham panicked and questioned the alien about who he was. The alien explained that he had named himself Paul after killing a dog named Paul by landing a spaceship on him. Paul then told Graham that they needed to leave immediately, then grabbed fainted Clive, put him in the vehicle, and the three of them left. We can then see a detective arriving at the remains of where the car crashed, looking for Paul the alien. Later, Paul and Graham are in a discussion with each other, where suddenly Clive wakes up and starts to strangle Paul. Graham explains to Clive that the alien was okay and that it was not going to hurt them. Later, they realize that there was a police search up ahead and slightly panicked. Two police searchers searched their vehicle and found nothing but a comic book that Clive had written. They were free to go and left. But Graham and Clive were confused as to how the officers did not find Paul, later realizing that Paul had gone invisible by holding his breath. Later, the detective meets up with the two search officers, asking about the vehicle they had recently searched, and got alerted when one of the officers told him about the pissed pants. The detective told the officers to come with him, and to go after the vehicle. Later, we can see in a vehicle where Paul is explaining that he thought he was being treated as a guest, but was actually being held as prisoner. They accidentally crashed into a crow. Paul got out and revived and ate the bird, to which Graham and Clive were surprised, and at the same time disgusted. They sat back and left again. Then, we can see one of the officers overhearing the detective talking to his boss about the alien. Graham and company arrive at a resort where a girl named Ruth welcomed them. Both Graham and Clive talk to the girl, and Graham fell in love with the girl. Later, we see Paul and the nerdy guy grilling up some food. Paul starts explaining how he helped the government with many things after he was captured. All three of them started dancing to music, where Ruth crept around and saw three shadows, and assumed that they were three people in the trailer. Ruth in the morning went to check up on the guys and found Paul the alien in the toilet, to which she fainted. Later, Graham and company decides to flee, but realize that their passport was inside. Paul used his invisibility to sneak inside the resort and steal back the passports, but was caught by Ruth's father, who panicked and brought out his gun to shoot him, but misses. Ruth, who is still in the trailer, wakes up and addresses Paul as a demon. Paul, after failing to explain himself to Ruth, later used another power and showed Ruth the truth. Ruth, who was initially religious, is now disappointed and stepped out of the car. Graham follows her and explains to her that she could do anything she wanted now. Ruth, feeling good, went back inside the vehicle, where Paul fixed her damaged left eye using his healing powers. Later, they arrived at a nearby bar, where Ruth stopped to call her father to tell him that she was okay. Coincidentally, the guys whose truck was damaged by the nerdy guys were also at the bar, and started a fight with Graham and Clive, and then chased them out to their vehicle. Paul dramatically exited the vehicle and made the guys faint with his appearance. Graham and company left right after. The detective and the two officers now arrived at the bar, where they questioned people. Paul is now seen sitting with the rest and explains to them why he left the government, which was due to the fact that the government wanted to extract some of his stem cells because of his healing and invisibility powers. The next day, Graham and the rest woke up only to notice that the area was now full of people and they were far away from their vehicle, so they decided to dress up Paul as a cowboy to disguise him. Graham went back to the trailer to tell Ruth, while Clive and Paul went to a shop. The officers enter the shop, where Paul sees them and freezes up pretending to be a dummy. One of the officers confronts Paul and panics, where Paul escapes the situation with Clive. The officers report to the detective about the alien and guide him in the wrong direction in order to get to him themselves first. Later, we see Paul and the rest arrive at a farmhouse, where Paul has landed. Paul then met with the old woman inside the house, who was the aged-up little girl Tara. Paul and the old woman discussed the time back when Tara was a little girl, and how she found and dragged out Paul and kept him safe and warm until the mysterious guys came and took him. Soon, right after, we see a smoke bomb crashing through a window thrown by the officers. Coincidentally, the detective also arrived. Paul and the rest panic and leave immediately. Paul faints out the detective with his power, while Graham knocks out one of the officers. Later, we can see Ruth's father also arriving at the scene and trying to shoot Paul. Graham and the rest leave successfully, while an officer and Ruth's father chase after them in different vehicles. The officer shot down Ruth's father's car, and a few minutes later found himself crashing down a bridge. Later, Paul and the rest arrived at the forest area and realized a chopper flying towards them and landing. The boss lady, who was addressed as the big guy, exited the chopper and asked them to hand over the alien to her. Seconds later, we come to know that the detective who was chasing them was actually the good guy who set Paul free from the government. He came from the back and shot one of the bodyguards of the big guy. Tara dramatically enters the scene and knocks out the big guy. Ruth's father now enters the scene and shoots at Paul, but Graham confronts the bullet and gets shot instead and dies. Paul then tries for the first time to revive a dead human, and successfully manages to do so, also damaging himself. Graham and Ruth kiss, when suddenly the big guy came back with a gun, and moments later gets crushed by a spaceship landing on her. Paul says his final goodbyes to everyone and takes Tara with him to his homeland. Then we could see Graham and Clive coming onto a stage and receiving an award for a comic book they'd always planned to write. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.